Liverbird podcast.
Hey there, welcome to the latest episode of the Lion and the Liverbird podcast. Today we'll be talking about the Lion side of things again, where Chelsea seem to be doing a lot of work off the pitch. They won the Club World Cup, a hefty amount was given to them. They battered PSG and got the win in the final. But there's another French Cup we need to talk about, that's Strasbourg, and how have roped them into their project, the multi-club model, which is gaining steam. Liverpool are also another club interested in building up from that. But let's start with Chelsea and Strasbourg. And Rohit, take away. Why did they buy Strasbourg of all clubs in Liga?
So that's an interesting story, right? Because when these American owners took over, Todd Bowley and Clear Lake Capital, I think they had a very clear picture in mind. They wanted to buy multiple clubs and basically build this ecosystem, right? And there's some good examples out there of clubs who've done it successfully. Obviously, Man City, right? I don't even know how many clubs they have.
They've
Of
got
course, they
clubs
have
in
Man City.
India, man. It's crazy. They've got clubs
Yeah,
in India and everywhere.
they've got Girona in Spain. I think
Yeah.
they've got a team called Troyes in France. They've got, I think, a team in New York, right?
Yeah.
In MLS. And which is the team in India? I didn't know about that.
Like it's Mumbai City, right? MCFC, Mumbai City was in the
Oh my
City
God.
group.
Yeah. So basically, that was the example. And of course, we cannot forget the Red Bull, conglomerate, Red Bull, Leipzig, Red Bull, Strasbourg. I think there's a Red Bull New York team as well, right? So they basically wanted to expand their empire because, don't forget they're business people, right? But what was the like sporting reason behind it, right? I think the sporting reason behind it is if you have multiple clubs, sister clubs, so to speak, you can buy and hoard a lot of young players, which is Chelsea's favorite pastime. Normally, Chelsea has actually been holding players for a long time, even since the Abramovich era. But none of those players end up, really progressing in their careers and becoming a part of the first team or getting us big bucks in the transfer market, a very small percentage. And this is where the sister club comes into play. If you buy a lot of these young, talented players for relatively cheap, and you have a sister club where you control everything, right? You control their transfers, you control their coach, you control how that particular team plays, then it's like a perfect like petri dish for you to develop all these young players into potential superstars, right? So what Chelsea did initially after they bought Strasbourg, again, they had a few missteps. They'd signed Patrick Vieira as the coach, who was a good coach, but he didn't really align with what Chelsea were trying to do, right? And initially, of course, there was a lot of pushback from the Strasbourg fans. So Racing Club Strasbourg has a very, deep and long and cherished history. And you know how the French fans are, right? They are very passionate, and we've seen the PSG Ultras and how passionate they are. So they hated being like the sister club, like a second team to Chelsea. So I think all of the games had like a BlueCo banner out. BlueCo is the company under which Chelsea and Strasbourg are, and they were very hostile, right? But things took a turn last year, right? Chelsea hired, I think his name is Rosenier. He's an English coach who's very similar to Maresca, right? And they also loaned out a lot of young, promising players to Strasbourg, right? So last year, Strasbourg had a really good year. They almost qualified for the Champions League, which would have actually been very bad for us, Adi. Because remember, if in the Champions League and UEFA tournaments, the same kind of ownership cannot have two clubs in the same competition. I think Crystal Palace are finding that out the hard way. So I don't want to say it, but they just lost out in the Champions League by like 3 points. And it was very weird the way they capitulated at the end. I don't want to stir anything up, but that seems a little fishy to me. What do you have to say about that, Adim?
Yeah, I'm not sure that is what they had in mind, but it would have been a problem for sure had they qualified also, right? And we've seen it. But it's interesting because the Red Bull, they never seem to have this problem with Leipzig and Salzburg in the Champions League. So maybe that's something that other clubs can look into to get more clubs into the Champions League. Because obviously you want clubs to play in the Champions League and get that big money. So yeah, interesting stuff.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think there's some workarounds around it, but most of the workarounds is changing the ownership structure and
Mm.
then, selling part of the club. So I don't know whether these guys will want to do that because the downside is you don't have as much control. Anyway, so coming back to last year, right? One of the main reasons Strasbourg did well, of course, was the new coach. And these new players. And among them, primary were Dodre Petrovic, who was their goalkeeper, and I think also their player of the season, and Andre Santos, right, the young Brazilian midfield starlet. Both of them played really well, and they were instrumental in Strasbourg moving up the table. But while Strasbourg also kind of gained from these young, good players, so did Chelsea because Andre Santos was one of the best midfielders and young midfielders in Europe last year, and now he's a part of the Chelsea first 11, right? So we bought him from Brazil when he was 17 years old, and so this is a good example of a young player who has a pathway into the first team, who develops in this sister club, and now I envision him playing a very, very crucial role in Chelsea's campaign this year. Uh, the second one, Petrovic, right? We have, a whole horde of goalkeepers, as you know, but his great performances last year got him a buyer. Bournemouth bought him for, I think, close to 28 million pounds or something. And Chelsea turned a very handsome profit on it. So on one end, Andre Santos is giving you the example of a young player who's integrated into the first team, and Petrovic is giving you the example of somebody who's sold for a lot of profit. I'm pretty sure these Chelsea owners will be like, toasting their glasses of champagne for these two aspects because I think this is exactly what they had in mind, right? This is the rare case where this model has started to click a bit, right? What do you think about this aspect of it?
Yeah, so I think that's actually what Chelsea have been wanting to do for a long time after stockpiling so much talent. And having an outlet like Strasbourg is good for them because obviously they can try out new players and see who clicks and doesn't click. So I want your thoughts on one thing. Like, do you want the strategy where you get players who fit into Chelsea's 11 or starting 11, or do you prefer that you keep making the money by selling these players off and you have a healthy a balance sheet which doesn't affect the club and there's no restriction from UEFA? Or it's like a bit of both. Like you want some players and you obviously want to sell the rest of them. I think obviously that's going to be the answer that you're looking for.
Yeah, yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head, right? It has to be a mixture of both, right? Because everybody else is doing it, right? Like City is doing it. And if you want to compete against them, you not only have to, spend big on the big players, but you got to catch these young, talented players early because, when you catch them early, they're also young, right? Catch is a bad word. It's like a Chelsea word when you recruit them early. They're cheaper also, right? So financially also it makes sense. So it also allows you some headroom to go and buy, your João Pedros, or right now we're trying to buy Xavi Simons for big money, right? And still not run foul of PSR. So I guess right now we are getting to that stage where it's becoming a healthy mixture of super young players, also youngish players ready for the first team. So that kind of brings us to our last point, right? What is going to happen this year, right? So this year, I'm actually very excited to watch Strasbourg play. So that's because we've either sold or loaned some very promising youngsters to them. The most important one being the Ecuadorian wonder kid Kendry Páez, right? We bought him. There was a lot of hullabaloo about how talented he is, but then he had some off the field issues with the Ecuadorian team. Nothing, too bad, but that kind of soured the taste a little bit. And right now it seems like he needs this loan. He needs time in the European League. So he's going to go to Strasbourg on loan and play. And he's a very talented player, right? A creative, left-footed midfielder, who's supposed to be really good. And if he has a good loan, then arguably, he comes back into the first team next season, or worst case scenario, we turn a profit, right? That's basically the model. So apart from Kendry Páez, we also have Mike Penders, who's supposed to be the next Thibaut Courtois, right? A very talented goalkeeper from Belgium. He's gone out there on loan, right? So hopefully he develops, and one of the two things, he comes back into our first team, or maybe we sell him for profit. Uh, the other two players that I'm interested about are kind of interesting because the first one is this defender called Mamadou Sarr, a tall young defender. We actually bought him from Strasbourg. And then right after buying him, we loaned him back, right? So he's actually a very tall, technical central defender who might grow into something, might get back into Chelsea. But this is where the gray area starts, right? We buy somebody from Strasbourg, we sell him back or loan him back, and basically cook the books. Uh, and then on top of Sar, there's another such example, Matthias Amougou, right? I don't know if you remember him. We bought him last year from Saint Etienne. He spent 6 months at Chelsea. I think he got one or two small appearances, and now we have sold him to Strasbourg. So a lot of cooking of books happening here, but he's also a very talented player, and he's basically going to fill the gap that Andre Santos is leaving in Strasbourg's team. And then the final person is a youngster, English youngster called Ishe Samuel-Smith, ISS. I think those are his initials. Left-footed center back slash left back, right? I think we got him from one of the smaller teams in England a couple of years back, and he was supposed to solve our left side issues, but it looks like we're getting Jorel Hato from
Yeah.
Ajax, and to make space, basically, Samuel Smith has been moved to Strasbourg, where he, in theory, will also get some really good first team minutes and develop and then maybe come back or get sold. So now you kind of start to see the conveyor belt of talent. Some of it is a little gray, of course, cooking of books, selling, buying between the clubs, but the loans, and at least you can see what the thought process and the idea behind it is. So I'm pretty excited. There's two teams to follow now in Europe. I'll watch more football. Sure, my wife is not going to be happy about it, but that's how things go.
Yeah. So I just wanted to know, are you guys or BlueCo is planning to expand the clubs that you have under your belt? Like you've got France and you've got England. So is there like any German team or maybe Italian or even going to another continent? I think South America could be a brilliant conveyor belt for talent.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think there were rumors of us trying to buy Sporting, right, from Portugal.
Wow.
And I'm pretty sure they will try to buy more clubs in the near future. And it's a good point you bring up. The reason why I think Strasbourg was bought is because France is like a hotbed of talent right now, right? And so is Portugal. I mean, you can see that in their national teams, right? So I think they'll expand as far as South America or maybe even Africa is concerned. I mean, those are, two very underutilized continents in terms of like, directly poaching talent. Maybe they'll expand. And then, Adim, I know Liverpool is also looking to buy
Yeah.
a sister club. Has there been any movement?
No. So we were linked with a few clubs here and there. I think one reason why Michael Edwards came back was of this multi club model, and they are actively working on it. I think once this transfer window is done with the Alexander Isak signing, we'll move on to this multi club model because I think you're right. This is the way to go forward. Manchester City have done a brilliant job with it for so long. Red Bull obviously have done a good job, and you can see that it's paying off for Chelsea. So it only makes sense that Liverpool with FSG Group trying to push and build this club, it makes sense that you go and get some more clubs from other countries, maybe some other continents, as you rightly said, to poach into that talent.
Okay, I think that with that we can kind of end the podcast. And of course, listeners, let us know what you think about Chelsea's, dual club sister club model. Do you think that, this should be allowed? Do you think that this is basically, again, finding loophole after loophole, or do you think this is a very calculated, strategy that's going to bear fruit? Let us know who you're excited to watch Strasbourg for. I personally am excited for Kendry Páez for sure, but all of those youngsters. And on top of that, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. Let us know if you like our content, if you want us to make any changes. We're always open to feedback. With that, thank you and goodbye.
Bye bye.